Hey everybody. Uh, I'm really sorry, but I almost forgot that I was live streaming tonight. So, um, yeah. Anyway, I've been trying my hand at Vogon poetry, if you will. And I'm not going to read it yet. I'll save that for later. I don't need to start out at the end. Um, But anyway, I'm still preparing material for tonight. I need to get it onto the computer that's here at my workstation. Um, hey, Ron. Uh, I'm using headphones to monitor. I just want to double check. You guys aren't hearing an echo, correct? Because the echo is probably the monitoring delay. But I want to make sure I'm not torturing everybody. Uh, so give me a second here. I need to find some stuff to copy over. Where the heck? Oh, there it is. Audio is low. Okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Da, 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 da. Okay. Is that better? Does it need to go higher? This is what happens when you change your entire arrangement under a new operating system. So, okay. Files to copy. Make it higher. You know, last time I had it, I did this, it was too high. How's that? Still need to go higher, or is that okay? Testing. 1, 2, 3. May a Mambo dog face on the banana patch. That's for you Steve Martin fans. Adventure. Do this by date. Yes, higher. Wow. Okay. How is this? Is this high enough, or does it need to go higher? Make sure I don't have filtering turned on somewhere for this. Snowball. Filters. Nope, no audio filters. Okay, well, we'll go for this for now. Hate to say it, but yes, higher. Wow. Okay. How about now? How now, brown cow? Okay, where's the file? Here's the file. I need to copy the file. Getting there. Well, it's at 220%. I wonder what's going on. Okay, we'll crank it up higher. Of course, the percentage is just a meaningless number, really. Is that any better? Hopefully it's not too loud. You know, it's still only in the yellow zone, so I don't know. Let's go higher. Okay, that's probably as high as I should go. It might start clipping if I go any higher. Okay. All right, thank you for the sound check. Still copying the file. So let me bring up that screen. Where are you? Okay. So in the adventure editor, there are multiple forms, and there's multiple fields on those forms, and it's a little crowded. And I knew I could do some, HyperTalk shenanigans to get it to, auto expand a field when you enter it, things like that. And I also found that I had another problem I needed to solve. Okay, I got to turn the monitoring off now. Okay, so let me hang that up. All right, there we go. I can't stand to hear my own echo, apparently. Anyway, so I came up with an idea for doing kind of a pop-up editor, if you will, that looks a bit like a dialogue control. And, there are ways to do it with an external command, but I wanted to try to do it in native HyperCard using HyperTalk and not have to have codes spread out all over the place to do it. So I think I came up with something viable, and I wanted to show it off tonight. So let me expand the updated code. I haven't been working on this computer lately. I've been on a laptop in my my bedroom. I don't know why. The temperature is fine down here now. It was, freezing. But okay. So we need to stuff it expander while we're waiting for that to expand. Okay. So there's been a lot of, angst, I'd say, over the past 6 months, right, about things. And I don't want to go into a lot of details, but I thought I would attempt to put it into, but disk related. The disk is full. Oh man. What is going on here? That's not the poem, by the way. So what is hogging up all the space? Oh, I'm trying to expand. Oh, wrong place, Eric. It helps if you expand it in the right location. So let me try that again. Stuff it expander. There we go. All right. While that's expanding. So I thought if you're a fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and then you would know who the Vogons were. The Earth is obliterated by a bypass, and they're like the construction crew for it. But anyway, this is really a rough draft. I haven't quite got it there, but I thought I'd go do it anyway. Ode to the Paramount Pestilence. I'm gonna butcher this. O Bilbus Sovereign, our spurting sore, grandest effluent enthroned forevermore. May your ambitions thy vapors creep, indulging whims that make souls weep. Your prodigious turmoil, a ponderous disease. Your vigor vast as gangrenous ease. That doesn't really roll off the tongue there. Each corporal process a cacophony vile, erupting forth a pestilent pile. Your witless decrees are pestilent regurgitations. I'm using pestilent too much. Spew forth as noxious malformations. A dotish fallacy, the zenith of crime, eternally fleecing a parasitic mime. So flourish, dear leader, to our disdain. Oh, flourish, dear leader, thou foul stain. May your presence, a putrid grease slick, forever plague your being, thou mushroomed prick. Here endeth the poetry. So, any resemblance to famous personalities is purely coincidental. Okay, so where's the folder? There's the folder. View as a list. It still needs work, doesn't it? Okay, so the editor here, desktop, oh, this is, yeah, no, the editor should still, no, it's not going to work. I'm sorry, I got to move this. Because trying to do it from this subdirectory is not going to work because I don't have the media file. Yes, Vogon poetry is often used as a form of torture. So it's dangerous working on it yourself, actually, I would say. I'd say that was pretty torturous. Torturous? It's definitely twisted. So stop talking and start working, Eric. Oh, it's not under applications, it's under user. And it's under development. And it's under adventure. Here we go. And I need to copy all this stuff into here. Yes, I know. So while we wait for that, I don't know. I think I did a pretty decent job of making it Vogon-ish. So I do need to work on my reading ability. I tripped over some of the words in here. They're not very, and it's a bit heavy, I guess. So how's everybody tonight? All three of us. Two of us. So Ron, how are you doing? I hope you were well. And also microbiologist. I said microbiologist. My God. Trina, micro hobbyist. I must have Trina on the brain. A bit tired, but fine in general. Yeah, it's been a long week, and it's only Wednesday, Captain. One of my employees has been describing it as a month of Mondays, and she was talking about last month and this month. So, some interesting developments at work. I pride myself on helping my employees grow in their in their capabilities and prepare them for their next job, because none of them are going to stay in the current job they're in if they're fortunate. It's not really, it doesn't have, being a business analyst in our department doesn't really get you far. You need to either go into a management route or go into a specialist kind of a position. And I have a very effective young person working for me that's very ambitious, very talented, and is now going to become an infrastructure specialist working for the DTMB, which is our parent agency, actually, that covers, it's the Department of Technology Management and Budget. So, pretty big department. And it's a really good career move for this person. The problem is now I've got to replace them, and it's going to be difficult. And but that's kind of my superpower at work is helping people find their next job, I guess. So congratulations to him. I'm not going to mention his name, but and I'm trying to also fill another position that's been vacant. And yeah, so good times, eh? Okay, I copied everything over. So let's get busy. So needless to say, it's been stressful. So we'll start up the adventure editor. I'm going to open the tavern, since that's the publicly available version. And here's an editor, just a text box that you have to edit. And you'll notice that it's got, well, maybe you can see it, an embedded \n, and that represents a new line character. And there's a reason why it's in here this way. I may work on this a little bit, because this doesn't really need to have a separate editor for it, because it's a fairly large text field, and it's not really necessary. But I just wanted to add the tool in here. So if you click on it, it does this really quick pop-up where you've got a title, a text box, and then the ability in this particular form of it, you can save or you can cancel. And you'll see that it converted all these \n to returns, so that you can actually edit this. And we'll save. And now it's got two \n in here, or yeah, two of them there. So pretty simple, right? It looks simple. Of course, it's not really a dialog box. And then here's the player. There's a little bit more text in the player here. You click on it, you've got, their description. There aren't any new lines or anything in it, but that's fine. You go to help. You want to see it the way it's going to be displayed. Now, why am I doing these \n? When you get to the NPCs, non-playing characters, the way the dialogue, and by the way, I discovered that dialogue, as I've got it written here, means a computer dialogue, not dialogue as in speech. So I'm going to have to make corrections there. Anyway, hey, hello there, I-80-386SX. How are you? So in the general text editor, it's just this simple kind of, thing. Hit cancel, it doesn't update anything. On the dialogue, it's actually separate lines of dialogue. And let's go to somebody that's got more dialogue. Okay. So, because of the way the dialogue works is that it throws out a line, but that line could have embedded returns in it because of formatting. You want it to look nice. So if you click on here, this is a single line editor. So let's do this. Let's break up the dialogue here a little bit. And we'll save it. All right. So that way it stays on here as a single line. And if I want to edit a different part of the dialogue, I just click on it and I can do it. Or this one. But this gives me, it packs a lot of information into a single field where I've got all the lines of dialogue. You can see how I actually spelled it correctly here. Yeah. All right. So what else is going on here? If you're doing the single, just we're going to do a simple editor, you just save or cancel. There's nothing else to do. But if you're doing this line editor, you might want to add multiple lines. You might want to delete a line. So I added to the dialogue where it will, or the pop-up dialogue. You can delete this. You could insert a new one. So we could change this to hello and insert it. And it inserts it in the line above where you're at. You can also delete it. It asks you if you want to delete it. Yes, and it's gone. So pretty simple, right? Here's where it's complicated. I wanted to make it as simple as you just drop this field on your form, your card, and all the code comes with it. You wouldn't have to do very much to it. It doesn't refer to scripting that's in another location or anything. It's all contained as a control or an object inside this one dialogue. So to do that, though, required doing some shenanigans. So let's go look at the field tool. And the script. Okay. So, before we get into the script, look at the properties. So you lock the text on the field. If you don't lock the text, you're editing right in the field, and it doesn't pass the mouse click onto the mouse handler event for the field. And we want it to do that. So for a simple editor control, we just want to lock the text. So let's get back to the script. So on the mouse up event, I call a function called edit text. I pass it the title for the control. So the dialog box that pops up has edit description on it. I indicate what buttons I want for the event. So these are the actions that can take place. And you can have up to 6 of them because there's only space for 6 buttons. You can name it Fred and Ginger instead of cancel and save. It doesn't matter. That way you have control over how you want the syntax. Maybe I want cancel and OK. It's in order from the bottom up on the control, so that's why cancel comes first. And then what comes after it is what you would call a reference. This string here, card field ID, and the ID of me, because me refers to it's a reference to the control that this script is embedded in. So, or container, if you will. So this builds a string that ends up being the card field ID of 32 or whatever the ID of me is. And the reason for doing this, there's some idiosyncrasies in HyperTalk on how to handle the naming of fields. If I had card field description, which is the name of this field, or just description, a lot of times in the context of the HyperTalk script, it would recognize you're talking about a field I'm sorry, you do have to have card field. You do have to indicate that much of it. But I could say card field description and it would be able to figure it out. Sometimes when you're using a string or a variable that contains the name of something, HyperCard gets confused, or HyperTalk does, and it thinks that's just text that you want. It doesn't resolve it as, oh, you're really talking about the contents of a control. So it can flake out on you. Referring to the ID value makes it a little bit easier to pass it around, and it's very explicit. If I had two fields named description on here, it could get confused because, yeah, it's just the way it works. Anyway, this is the character that I want to replace with returns. So I made it generic so that if I was using tabs or vertical lines or something like that to separate things, this would substitute for returns. There's another reason why you have to do this. And then card field ID, the ID of me is, and this is another reference to where the script is for a callback function. So a callback function is a pointer or a text reference to a function or a handler or something that you're going to call using a variable. So it's like a function reference as opposed to an explicit naming of the function in the code. And the way HyperTalk works, hey, Gutbomb, you need to tell it exactly where that function resides. Otherwise, it looks through your stack, your entire stack script. Then it looks through the card script. It looks through the background script. Eventually, it gives up and it can't find it. So it's better just to tell it where the context is, and you can see that later. So anyway, I pass all this garbage to it. This is really all you need to worry about. The rest of it you can ignore and just use. The editor callback function is where you take action on what the editor is doing. So in the editor, it doesn't really know what you want to do with things. You're going to want to cancel action because you want to be able to cancel editing. But beyond that, I don't know, maybe I'd want to print. Maybe I'd want to do other things. There could be all sorts of stuff you want to do. So to make it generic so that you could control exactly what buttons are on there, maybe it's an editor for a media file and you want it to be able to play the music that's selected or something. So you have to have a callback function that takes an action. And what's passed back is the container that for the editor that says, here's where all the text is. So if you're canceling, you don't care because you're just going to skip it. So here's where the action, you check to see if it's a save. If it is a save, I have a function I run called return text, replace text, that will put returns in where or rather it'll put \ns in where it finds a return, and then puts that into this text variable. And then I put the text into me, which is a reference to this edit control, or rather the field that you're editing. And then if the action is cancel, it doesn't do anything. So it's very simple. Here's the replace text function. It's just something I wanted to have all the code you need embedded in here. I have this actually defined in the stack, but I put it here so that you could drop this field that has the edit capability anywhere, and it would have everything it needs. And you can do that. You can have multiple definitions of a function. It uses whichever one is closest in scope, which is nice because you can override hypertext functions as well. Okay, and here's the edit text. So it's got the title field, the action list, cancel, save, whatever, a reference to the text field, so the source of the text that you're editing, The return substitute is just whatever character string you're using to represent returns. The container reference, and the callback function or routine. I've got some comments. All right. So the first thing we want to do is lock the screen. Otherwise, all of the dynamically generated fields and everything, you'll see it happen. In fact, we could, we're going to comment that out so we can show how it looks. So we're going to comment out the lock screen. And the unlock screen. And we'll get back to it here in a second. Now, there is a problem with this. It's a minor problem. It's boilerplate code, so this code is repeated everywhere you drop the your container for the editor field. But there's an advantage to that too. All right. So we lock the screen. We set the user level to 5. 5 allows scripting and modifying your cards and stuff, and since this is dynamically generating fields and things, it needs to have that level of scripting. An end user application might be at user level 2, so that they can't do any scripting or anything. All they can do is use the app. So I save the user level and set it to 5. I've got a button list that I use to manage the generated buttons. The first thing I do is create a background field. So you do menu, new field. Again, if I was at user level 2, there is no new field menu item, so you can't do it. So that's why it switches to 5. I put the ID of the last card field. The last card field is always the last one that was created. Since I just created a new field, this is how I can get a reference to it. And then I set the rect, or the size of the card field, to this hard-coded value. I lock the text of it, and this is why I'm drawing a background field as a dialog box holder. And I set the style of the card field to shadow. And we'll dissect that in a second. Next, I do a title field, and this is where you throw that title that you passed into it. So here's, I'm setting the text style of it and other things. Setting the position for it. I create the actual edit field that you use to edit. So in this case, it's a scrolling field. And here's the position for it. And this is where I was talking about using, having to do some magic so that we could resolve this reference to the field that's containing the text we want to edit. There's a function called value that will evaluate. It's kind of like an eval in JavaScript. It evaluates whatever text you pass it as if it were HyperTalk script, and then evaluates it. Value will dig down deeper into the meaning of what you pass to it and say, oh, you're talking about the contents of a field, not the string card field ID of, with ID X or whatever. Okay, and I replace the return with the substitute, or rather the substitute character with return, so that you have it in the edit field, and stick that in the card field that we created. And then I've got a loop here to create the action buttons. So I start at the bottom, and I create a button in a loop, and here I'm calculating what the position should be. So as your loop increases, you stack the buttons higher up. And I also set the name of the button to the action that was passed. That's why the action is called cancel or save or something like that. Okay. Now, at this point, we've got a screen that's got a background field to make it look like a dialog box. It's got a title field. It's got an edit field and some buttons on it, but they don't do anything except the default actions in HyperCard. But we want it to execute some script. So you can write script that writes script. And one of the things that's always the funnest and most tedious thing that I enjoy doing is writing a program that writes programs. Um, I used to do a lot of SQL Server queries where I would use like the information schema in SQL to figure out the table structure, the names of tables and fields, to loop through that information to create a query to do something. So it would automatically generate a select query that would, do something with each table, or whatever. So you have to kind of think out of the box a little bit when you do this, because you've got to hand piece together strings of text that translate into code. So what is this code doing? It uses the send function, which sends a message. So HyperTalk and HyperCard has Apple Talk events in them that communicate to components of your cards by sending messages around, like the mouse up message, or the mouse down, or that you've entered text or you've capitalized or something like that. So there's a whole slew of events that are fired. So send is a way of doing your own event. So I send, quote, the callback function name, quote, and then a quoted string with quote in it, the short name of me, and then quote and quote again, and then quote, and then the card field ID. Anyway, I'll show it to you so that you can see what the command looks like. So it's a little bit, you end up typically having to edit this over and over again until you get it right. Hi, Rudy. I've thought about writing a little generator that you could hand it a script and it would then encode it for you in a send, but it's hard to figure out exactly what you want to do that way. Anyway, so then it locks the screen, it deletes, and then deletes all the card stuff that was generated for you. So the cool thing about here is that even though the send is referring to making reference to the field, so card field ID, the edit field, I can still delete it from the card and it still exists in memory, so you can still refer to the contents of it. So I delete all the stuff for the editor that I generated, and then I send this script to the button, and then repeat. I do that for each of the buttons. So it's sending what that action was that you picked, the name of the button. That's where the short name of me is. So let's take a look and see what this looks like. I'm going to set a breakpoint there. We're going to save this script. We're going to go back and we're going to select the browse tool so that we can execute it. So you saw it generating stuff in the background. We're going to open up the variable watcher so that we can see the variables. Sorry, the text on this is kind of small, so so far we don't have anything in this because it's going to write it to a variable, so we're going to single step through, and now we're going to go look. What did it put in? The script. Okay. So here's the script that it's going to execute. Sorry, it's kind of small. It shouldn't have on mouse up in there. That must be left over. Yeah, because it's doing it after the name of the script. Oh, no, it's got to do the rest of the script. I just wanted to show you the callback. So it's send editor callback, and means add a space, a quote, the short name of me, and then a quote, and then it appends the card field ID 330 to card field 53. So card field ID 330 is the edit field, the one we generated, and card field ID 53 is the field that we got the text from that's on the form. So let's continue here. So it's going to loop through and it does each button. So here's the full script for it. So there's a mouse up, it does the send, it locks the screen, it deletes all of the editor controls, so the buttons and fields that were added, unlocks the screen. There. So that's how it dynamically generates it. So the title field, which I should lock that, that's a bug. This is the texture editing, and then you got your save and cancel button. So let's fix this. This control here should be locked. So we need to go to where we're generating it, and that would be the title field. Set the what's the property? Set lock text to true, I think. So we're going to try that. Okay, let's save that. Go back to the browse tool. Oh, I want to kill that breakpoint. Okay, that worked. So now we can't edit the title. So that, now here's the challenging part. I fixed something just in this field. It didn't fix the code anywhere else. So because this is boilerplate that's embedded in that control, I've got to now go make that patch everywhere else I've got an instance of it. Yes, I could move this code into the stack, so it would just call that function there. Nothing wrong with that, except now you've got code that you got to maintain somewhere in the stack that's not just part of this thing you can drop. And this is the problem with the way it's encapsulated. I'm trying to make it to be a self-contained object. And a lot of the home stack examples for code for this kind of thing, it's the same way. You just copy the thing and drop it into place and it works. Because most people that are working in HyperCard aren't doing all this kind of coding. They're just using objects, and you want to make it very simple for people to use. So I could, when I got it all nailed down, move it out of there and into the stack code just to make it easier for me to manage, but it kind of defeats the point. So we need to lock the screen back up here because we don't want it to be flashing while it's building the whole thing. Save that script, cancel, let's try it again. Boom, Bob's your uncle. So we can't edit the title. You can go in here and I can say, oh, this is a really long description. Um, wow, that was a long description. We're going to break it up a bit. There. Save. So now you can see right there I've got some extra line feeds, or new lines. The \n is the way the C language does new line characters, so that's where it came from. And what I did before I had the edit control is you had to actually remember, I got to put a \n here, and if you goofed and did a /n, it would just put that text on there. So this hides that, and why I went with, I'm not just going to click on this field and make it bigger, which is another way I could have solved the problem, because I also wanted to solve this edit problem where you had to go edit these things. And that's pretty much how it works. So if we wanted to, let's close this. We're going to go home. No, I don't want to save the changes. All right. So let's just show how you drop this on someplace and use it. I've got to go back to the stack I was at, so let's go back. No, I'll save the changes. And we're going to edit. Oh, yeah, one of the other things I wanted to show you. If you look at the dialog editor, let's look at our field tool. There's a few more properties that have to be set. I did consider doing this in the code, and I might yet, because if you forget to set lock text, the mouse event doesn't get sent to the code and it doesn't execute. If you don't turn don't wrap on, then it's difficult to select a single line, because you need a single line for it to select in this editor mode. If I don't have auto select, then it doesn't make the line black when you select it, which is important. Yeah, so I could have the first thing that happens when you call the edit text control thing is have it check to make sure the properties are right. The problem is that if you don't click lock text, it's never going to get that event to execute the code to check. So you're kind of screwed there. All right. So we need this control, so I can select this. I'm going to do Command C for copy. We're going to go back to the home stack. And it changes back to the browser because you open a new stack. I'm going to change to the field tool, and I'm going to paste field. So here is our big text field that we had, and that's it. You don't have to add anything else. Change back to the browse tool, click on it. Here's your editor. And now is the season of our discontent. That's not really Shakespeare. Okay, and there you go. It's there. May I mambo dog face on the banana patch. Save. And it's got that embedded enter string in it. Let's say I don't really want it to replace the returns. So let's do this. Let's modify it. So we're going to go to the text tool, going to open up the script. Right here where I say I want these replaced, I'm going to change this to return. So it's going to replace return with return. Hopefully. Let's find out if it works. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to put a couple of returns in it. I'm going to save. And it didn't work. Why? Because I'm not using the past value. See, this is where testing comes in. So that is the replace string. I bet you if I look for \n, look, I passed the editor callback doesn't have it. So it doesn't know what it is. So really this should be needs another parameter. So we're going to add the, what did I call it? Replace string as a parameter on the callback. Oh god, this is going to be complicated. Oh, it's not the replace string. It's the return substitute. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. So we're going to do that. Now I have to change where I'm calling the callback function. Which is called the callback. Oh. So right here I've got that callback function that I'm calling. Now we get to have fun. I've got to add another parameter that is the return value, that value. So I've got to add the return substitute as the first parameter for the callback function. So here's our send with callback quote, the short name of me, and quote, and a comma. So we need to simulate that. So we need, that's the space, and then we begin the first parameter. So I'm going to do an option return to extend the string. And we're going to put in here so what we need to do is basically put this in with a comma after it, but we need to embed it so that it's programmatically writing this. So what you have to do is put, so there's already a quote, callback, but that's for this. Now we're going to add another quote. Sorry. Keyboard. I've forgotten how to reuse the keyboard. This doesn't need to be 2. We're going to have to do that. And that. But we also need a quote here. So let's see if that gives us what we need. So we'll set a breakpoint here. We'll save this. Can't understand the arguments of and. So I haven't done it correctly. Which means that whatever I'm putting in here doesn't make any sense. Because I don't have my strings lined up. Oh, yeah, see, send, quote, callback, quote, and the return substitute, and quote, and comma, and there. I think that's the problem. So let's try that. Expected variable name but found. Okay, so that's not quite right either. Yeah, this isn't right. You can see why this is really tedious. Okay, well at least it executed, but did it make good code? Variable watcher. Send callback, quote, no, this isn't right. Oh, you know what? It's actually the return character. We don't want the character, we want the string. So we've got to recognize that what's being passed is a printable character and not the word return. So there's a couple ways of dealing with that. I could put quotes around the return as it's passed. But then I would end up with return and quotes in there. That gets complicated. So let's try that. So instead of a hard-coded return, let's put the string return. So now it's going to try to put the string return in. But I wonder if I could do a val on it. Is that going to mess up the other? No, that's not going to work either. Oh, maybe I should do this. Empty. Instead of replacing return with return, let's replace it with empty. I can test for empty and say don't do any replacement. No, that's not going to work because I can't. Okay, here's the other problem. The send command has to have a single line of text. You can't have embedded returns and things like that in it because then it doesn't execute as a statement. So you have to escape any return with something. So I still have this problem of I could do an empty string or a space and say that's what I want there, but that's not really what I want. Okay, so this is a tougher problem than I thought it was going to be. We're not going to solve it. Not tonight, anyway. So we're just going to leave that in there. We're going to see if the code will work. Now I interrupted the code in the middle of execution. Cancel's not going to work because the script didn't get written. Now what I have to do is deconstruct it manually. So I'm taking apart the components that I threw together and generated, just so I can get it back to the state where it's empty. We'll click on it. We're going to look at the script. So I think that'll work. Okay. So we're going to execute it. We're going to get rid of that. Can't understand arguments of comma. Okay, so the script is messed up still. Send. Oh, you know what's wrong here? This needs to be this. So we need to have this, not what I had. So let's take a look at the code again. Now you can see why it was so tedious to put together. I know it's very boring. And this is what happens when I code on the fly. So to send, callback, and quote, and quote, and no, that's not going to work either. This needs to be that. I think. Okay. I'm going to stop here because otherwise it's going to be everybody sitting around just watching me work. Good night, micro hobbyists. But you can see how this, trying to make a generic control that will take things that break stuff. Like, I want the user to be able to just toss. If they want this to be a return, they can put it in. If they don't want any kind of embedded character replacement, then I'll have to come up with they provide no value here, like empty. And then I interpret it and say, well, I've got to encode it for myself. And on both ends, I'm going to remove that encoding. And I think that's the trick I'll have to do. I'll have to pass this behind the scenes, but also allow users to do it. Anyway, there you have it. So that's that control. It is very simple to just drop it in and use it. Save changes, no. Cancel. Saying it still can't figure out how to do it. So anyway, tools. We'll just go delete this stuff. So I was using a field to simulate a dialog box that was around everything. That's why you have that extra field in the background. Buttons. Okay, so we're gonna tools. We're gonna get rid of this because it's crap, and we're gonna go recent. We'll go back here. No, I don't want to save any changes. I'm going to have to figure that out. Okay. And if we go to the NPCs and the dialogue, see how it's screwed up now? Oh, that's probably my file that's screwed up. Anyway, so you can see it does work in this case the way it's set up for the editor. Need some refinements to make it more generic, but there you go. Anyway, so let me know if you want to see more videos like this. Let me know if you want to hear more Vogon poetry. Let me know if you don't want to hear more Vogon poetry, but it's not so veiled attempt to communicate my feelings about the current environment we live in. So if you're interested, if you came late and you want to hear it, it's somewhere in the first 5 minutes. So I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Let me go back to the big view, the webcam. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. And I will see you next time. So I'm probably going to keep doing kind of not on every Wednesday night, but I'm going to keep doing a Wednesday night live stream because Saturday morning, although I'll still do that occasionally, it's a little rough getting up and live streaming in the morning like that. I'm more of a night programmer. Yeah, it's a really poor rendition of poetry, so beware. If I'll still do it, but I'm more of a nighttime programmer. In fact, when I first started working on this control, it was Saturday a week ago, and I was up until 4 a.m. before I realized how late it was. I haven't done that in a long time, but I was kind of inspired to get something working. So I had it mostly finished by 4 a.m., which was for 6 hours of coding. I should never start anything at 10 o'clock at night or 9:30. So I guess it was 7 hours, basically. Um, and then I put another 3 hours into it. So that was pretty good, I think, for cranking something out that quickly. Obviously, still needs work, but there you go. I'm gonna tweak it a little bit to make it more, a little more solid, and then I'll throw it up on, Macintosh Garden or something like that for people to use. All right. Well, thanks a lot. See you guys all later. Um, I don't know who's streaming tomorrow, if anybody is. I don't know. Is Justin streaming Thursday, or is there no Justin stream again this week? Um, Anywho, see y'all later. Bye.